Alrighty guys, so today I got a little bit of a project on the Genesis, and I know it's been a minute since I made some Genesis content. I've been working on the Z pretty regularly. Although I noticed when I was driving the Genesis, it started overheating a little bit. And at first I thought maybe I nicked the radiator while I was changing out the alternator. And I did a little bit of investigation, and it doesn't seem to be leaking at all. The coolant overflow tends to leak a little bit when the car actually overheats. That way, yeah, I guess it can't hold enough coolant. It just, pools out and whatnot. So that was happening for a little bit. I was trying to keep the car, within operating temperature, but when I was sitting in traffic, I could see like the temperature gauge start slowly rising up and whatnot. And it's just kind of like a pain. So I drove like that for a little bit. Got the car a little hotter than I'd like to. So I was going over the main components for the Genesis and the cooling system. This is on the 4.6 by 4.6. It should be the same for the 3.8s as well, as it uses the same type of hardware layout. Obviously it's a different engine, and the only difference is like the temperature sensor, which I'm not replacing mine because I replaced mine when I did my coolant change. And I don't think it's bad, at least not yet. I'll know after this, at least. So what I went ahead and did is I purchased a new fan controller. So this is the fan controller right here, and what you want to match, if you are going to try to replace yours as well, is that part number right there. Sorry, I know it's not the easiest thing to line up, but anyway, mine is 2538 4-3M280, and I think there's like a 235 or 245 or something like that, but the 280 is the one that is required for the 5.0 and the 4.6, any of the V8 Genesis. I guess like the 4.45 or something like that, or the 3.5 is for the V6 models only, and apparently those don't work properly. I'm guessing it's because this reads the temperature and triggers the fans to come on at a certain temperature, and the temperature probe might be different on the V6, or this might read for like a certain temperature before it turns on. So for like the V6 might run a little hotter, or might run a little cooler, and if you put the V6 one in the V8, it might turn on sooner, it might turn on later, and you don't really want to mess with that. So this one's actually off of a Hyundai Equitas, and it has the same model number and everything, and it was actually cheaper to get the Equitas one than it was to just get one that was for a 4.6 or like a 5.0 R spec. And this is used. I bought it off eBay. I bought it off eBay, and it was about $60. I think they range between $60 to $80, or if you want to buy a new one, I think it's like $300. So wasn't exactly 100% sure if this is the issue. I'm assuming this is the issue because it makes the most sense. Just because it is a part that sits in the engine bay, it gets heated, it's exposed to elements. I don't have splash guards, so you never really know if moisture got to it, especially in Hawaii over here. We have a lot of moisture in our air. So I'm gonna go ahead and replace this. The other potential thing that could be faulty is the relay itself. Before my cooling system stopped working, whenever I turned the car on, it would immediately kick on. Now that could be a faulty fan controller. It could also be a stuck relay, and the relay is the same between the V8 and the V6 as far as I can tell. So I do have the V6 relay out of my parts car that I'm gonna throw in mine, and obviously I'm gonna test it with the relay that I already have in there, because relays don't normally go bad. They can, but they don't normally go bad. So I'm gonna test it with the relay that is in the fuse box at the moment, and obviously get the car up to a running temperature and see if the fans kick on, or if it kicks on automatically. If it kicks on automatically, I'm gonna swap out the relay with the other one that I have, and I also ordered a new one just in case, but just to have a new one really. But so fan controller, relay, and temperature probe, for your coolant sensor. Those are really the main three keys that could, have this kind of issue. Now, a good way of testing to make sure your fans just aren't bad, I'll show you in a minute, but there's like a black and a green wire on like a big connector that clips in to, I believe it's this side actually, right there. And you can actually take that off and probe it with like 12 volts from like a battery or like a jump box or something. Just stick 2 pins in there, And if your fan kicks on, then you know your fan's not bad. So at least that's what I did so far when I was replacing my headlights. I did that just to make sure that the fans were good, and the fans work fine. And now that's why I decided to go with the fan controller, because I'm pretty sure the relay might be bad, but if it was the fan controller, that'd make more sense, just because it wouldn't kick on automatically. But enough of me, gibbering. I'm gonna go ahead and just show you guys where to locate it and how to replace it. You don't need to, tear apart a whole bunch of stuff to get to it. It's pretty straightforward as far as I can tell, but I'll go ahead and show you guys how to do it now. Okay, so if you guys want to replace your fan controller, the best place to locate it, or easiest access, is going to be right underneath this fuse box. As you can see, it's located right there, and that's the cable that goes to the fan assembly right here. And obviously, I already disconnected this. I just want to make a video so that you guys can understand how to do it. So far, there's 2 bolts back here, 10s. And then there's going to be 2 10s right here on this bracket. So take these 2 10s off. You do have to remove this, not fully, just a little bit, enough to get to these 2 10s, 2 10s, and you can pick this up and move it outside. Disconnect your battery before doing any of this, just so you know you don't mess with the electrical stuff while the battery is connected, just so you don't mess anything up. But then once you do move it out of the way, you will have access to this connector. Push it down, pull it out, and then there's another 10, which you'll need a deep 10 for, to get this this nut off. And then once you get the nut off, you can have a little bit more access to the fan controller right there. There's 2 more clips on the back. Those should also be push and release clips. And then once you get those off, you should just be able to pull out the unit, stick the new one in, and clip the new clips on, and then you'd be in business. There is going to be this like shroud protection thing on there as well, I forgot to mention. That just slides over it, and it just clips on the sides. So you can go ahead and just unclip this and take it off if you want. That's what I did, and then you can have more access to it. So I'm gonna go ahead and just pop this guy out and pop the new one in, and then I'll recap once I get the new one in. So I'm gonna go ahead and say that this fan controller is toast. Literally, like, I don't know if you guys can really see that, but that is part of a burnt connector inside of there, which is very strange because that is almost identical to what happened to my power steering pump. And what this tells me is I most likely have a really bad ground system somewhere, because something's not right. That's just what hits me. It's like, it just seems like a really bad ground. I have had issues with my ground strap in the back where I need to like go and fiddle with it sometimes to get the car started, so so that sucks. As for getting the new one in, I mean, looking down here, that connector was not very easy to get off. That back one I ended up using was like a pick that has like this little indentation in it, and basically going in between like these little fins right here, kind of like this with the pick upwards, sneaking it down here, and getting it on the inside and pushing down while pulling back on the fan controller. So you have to get like underneath the clip and then push down, because there's like a clip right there. I think it actually ended up just breaking this piece, but that's the old one anyway, so it's fine. But then it slid off, so take your time, it'll come. I basically did the same thing to that one, so it's being replaced. There's new clips on there anyway. You just don't want to break the connector itself. But as you guys can probably see, that is toast. Literally, like, it's free floating from the connector. The pin looks like it'd still make connection. It's just, I don't think it's gonna seat all the way down. Almost tempted to like cut it off and see if I can take it out of the car and clean it better. I don't know. I'm gonna use the pick probably and just start picking at it and see if I can maybe clean it up and get all the old plastic out of there, and hopefully it'll clip into the new one. I'm assuming with that little barb right there underneath the plastic barb underneath the metal one, that's gonna stop the existing clip from going in because of how much melted plastic is inside of it. So I'm gonna go ahead and fix that real quick, and then I will recap once I do actually figure it out. Alright, so a little bit of an update. What I ended up doing is pulling this orange plastic piece out, and then I was picking away at some of the plastic, and the whole actual connector just popped off, so I ended up just chipping away at all the burnt stuff inside there. And the connector itself seems, it's toasty, but it's fine. Like, it doesn't look nice, but it doesn't have any like melted plastic or anything inside of it. It's really strange that the fuse didn't like just pop or something versus melting. because that's kind of what the fuse's purpose is, to pop before this kind of stuff happens. But it is what it is. And yeah, there's a better angle at it, just so you guys can see. There's nothing in it. It's just, burnt metal. Obviously not that good. But yeah, anyway, gonna go ahead and see if I can slide this back through, put this little piece back on, and then align it so it'll actually clip back on that, and then we should be back in business. I will try to get some sandpaper and clean that connection up a little bit more though, just so it does make a good connection, that way I don't have any more electrical issues. And then I'm gonna go with my trunk and mess around with my ground cable. I might actually just order a new ground strap. I know they're kind of expensive, but hopefully I can get one used, and then I can avoid issues like this, because my power steering started acting up again as well, even though I just replaced the pump. It was a used pump, but still I feel like this car in particular has some kind of grounding issue, and that's what's causing this type of stuff to happen, especially since this is like case number 2 of a burnt connector that I'm finding. It's possible maybe Hyundai used too much wire and there's just too many amps flowing through it, but that's what the engineers should have accounted for. But then again, this is a 09, so like a true first gen. I know Korea had like an 08, but in the States, the 09 was the first, to my knowledge. And then, maybe they just oversight, like it was an oversight. But I don't know. Yeah, so regardless, I'm gonna fix it. And when I actually do a lot of work to this car, I'm gonna go back through the wiring system and correct a lot of stuff, because I feel like it's just stuff that needs to be fixed. But regardless, I'm gonna go ahead and get some sandpaper and clean that guy out, and then I'll button this thing back up. So I just took a piece of sandpaper, a very small piece, folded it in half, and that way it's on both sides for gritting this, and I'm just running it in and out of the connector, trying to get it clean on the inside. You can stuff it in there and quickly pull it out, put it back in there, and basically you just want to continue doing that and until it looks clean, and then you can go ahead and just put it back together. If your connector is actually damaged or there's lodged up plastic, you could try reheating it to get the plastic out, and then do this step after. I don't have a crimp connector that's this big for like a barb. If you have like a wiring harness, you might want to solder a new piece on. It's up to you. This is just how I'm doing it. It's up to your own discretion if you decide to do this. I don't claim any liability or anything for any damages, but this is just how I'm doing it for an example. But yeah, and I'm going to continue doing this, and I'll show you guys what the connector looks like after I'm done cleaning it. So it's a little hard to pick up on camera, but it is a lot cleaner on the inside, and that should be fine to reassemble. I'm going to go ahead and slide the plastic sleeve back on, and then the rubber insulation weather sealing strip back in, and then try to clip that barb on first, and then go from there. Alright, so if you're in the situation that I'm in with the burnt connector, probably want to connect it up first before trying to put the bottom connector in. I put the bottom one in first, and it made it a whole lot more difficult. So it's not impossible. You just basically gotta force feed the wire through the connector and the burnt one, and then you can line it up by hand by just pushing it on there, and you'll feel when it slides on. And then once it does slide on, you can go ahead and slide the rest of the housing back onto it. You might want to put some kind of the hard part is, like, I'd like to put something in there, some like glue or something to hold it, so if I hit a bump or something, it won't pop out. Theoretically, with the connector over it and the weather sealing strip, that wouldn't happen, but I don't know, I'd like something in there. I just don't really know what to put in there. I think like paper, because it's non-conductive, but then I really want paper in there, and also I don't really want it getting in the way of the seal. I don't know. I'm tempted just to run it without anything, just because I know it'll probably be fine. So I think that's what I'm going to do. Plus there's like a little grommet thing on the back of the wire that feeds into the connector that you have to kind of like push past to get the wire through this far into it, and then you can connect it. So I'm hoping that seal grommet thing is going to hold it, where the wire should be, so it can't back out. And then the connector over on top would be fine. So I think that's just what I'm gonna do. I'll make sure that the connector is fully seated over it, and then slide the housing on top of it, and then call it good. But I'll update you if I figure out something. So I didn't end up putting anything in there. I just pushed the wire on all the way it would go, and then slid the connector on top of it. And honestly, especially with the nut down, this harness is hard to move by itself with the nut on there, like crimping down the fan controller. It doesn't seem like that's gonna like have a lot of vibration to the point where it'd pop out. So I just made sure it was all the way on there, and then clipped the housing on top of it, put this guy on it, bolted it down with a nut, and put this little housing piece back on and clip it on top of that, so it's, you know, like OEM. And I'm gonna call that replaced. Now obviously if I have any issues, I know where to start looking. And I don't know, I might, because I do have a parts car, I might just go and clip the end off of that connector on the parts car, and then just solder the new connector on there, just because, you know, that's how it's supposed to be from factory. And I don't think you can buy just pigtails, unfortunately. I'm not even sure what the connector would be called to buy a pigtail, not like a generic one. So there's that. And yeah, hopefully that is all good. Clip the little housing thing back on there, rebolt your 410 mils, and also, sorry, you probably want to remove this guy too. I removed this guy on this side. This is a 10 mil as well, to gain access to there. Obviously you gotta take your bush clips off and whatnot, but yeah, still can't believe that's burnt. I'm gonna go ahead and say that the relay probably should be fine. I'm gonna replace it anyway, but I don't think it's the relay that caused this. I feel like it was just too much amperage because it got stuck on. I'm guessing this unit failed, got stuck on, it was pulling way too much power for way too long, overheated it, did this to it. Because that could happen. Even, you know, not even say like your wiring system perfect. If this isn't meant to have constant current 24/7, or at least during the time of your drive, if you're, say, you're driving for an hour or two for like a commute or whatever, this could definitely happen. You know, if it's getting fed consistent power and it's not supposed to, it's only supposed to get power when, you know, the car's getting to a certain temperature, so it would only cool it down and then it would turn it back off. So maybe this will only be on for, you know, like 10, 15, 20 minutes maybe, and then it would turn back off. And of course that would probably only be on while you're sitting in traffic with the temperatures rising and whatnot, so that it would cool your engine down. But as you're driving, that wouldn't need to be on because it has, you know, fresh air being fed into it anyway. But regardless, I'm glad I ordered a new one, and I'm hoping that fixes the issue. Still gonna replace the relay that's inside there, just in case. And it's a good idea to check your ECU connections while you're here. Just 110, pop this cover off, make sure the clips are on there. I had that pop off on me one day and it fried the ECU, so that's kind of just on my checklist to check every now and then, just to make sure that the connector on there is fine. But that's just a whole nother side thing. Anyway.